Hello there again, CrossFit community. Here we are with another episode of the CrossFit Fort Dodge Way. Today we're going to talk about intensity. Now, first and foremost, we're going to break down what intensity is, what it's not, kind of our feelings on intensity. But the first thing I want to talk about is intensity is actually something that keeps people from trying CrossFit. And I think what I want people to understand right now from the very beginning is intensity is the component that is relative to Brock, relative to me, relative to you, and it's relative every single day. And so we're going to kind of break that down. But quite frankly, this is one of the areas of CrossFit that turned me on. As a science geek, I kind of liked how we could have it measurable. So if we review kind of the major premises of CrossFit and what we've done over the last couple episodes, and we're going to continue to do, is breaking down that functional movement. I got the whiteboard out today, so bear with me, guys. Functional movement with constant variation, which we kind of touched on last week, so go ahead and turn back to that one. And today we're talking about high intensity, and we could even put that little R up here, right? And so the reason it's R is relative intensity is this is one of the independent factors that you determine each and every day. We help facilitate that as a coach. We help curate the atmosphere where we're hoping that you maybe increase intensity, things like that. But ultimately it is relative, but high intensity. It does actually say high intensity as well. Before I even get into the nerd stuff, what are some of the misconceptions you've heard or seen around intensity with people?
Screaming and yelling.
That's true, yes.
Nope.
Yes.
Like he's about to get into in a sec, it's measurable. Intensity is measurable. It's not just, that felt great, you know?
Mm-hmm.
How well did you perform, right? Did you move a long load, large distance, and quickly, right? Was it a functional movement? Yep. Things like that, and we'll get into that in a sec, but there is a literally unit you can measure, right? Absolutely. It's not like, I felt great, right? I felt awesome. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Absolutely, and I think he hit on a good point there is I think so many times when people see CrossFit and quite frankly some CrossFit gyms have done this themselves, they imagine the coaches are just sitting there yelling at you. And that's rarely the case. I mean, like 1 in 100 classes that coaches even raising their voice.
Relative to and each person, right?
Like
I might yell at Josh, but I might...
But most people have no idea.
Give a hand clap to someone else.
So the nerd part though. So the reason we like to measure this. Okay, so first of all, why is intensity important? I'm gonna maybe go slightly out of order here. But the reason we come to the gym is we want results. We want to see an improvement. We want to improve in a certain area. And if all we do is we show up and we don't bring some level of intensity, there's not going to be any stimulus on the body. And it's not going to force an adaptation. And adaptation is just another way of saying AKA results, right? And so if you want to get bigger muscles, but you only move 5 pounds once a day, it's not going to happen. Nope. There's no intensity. So again, anytime we can increase intensity, we're going to be able to increase the stimulus to the body. The increased stimulus to the body is going to cause an adaptive response, which is what we want as results, whether it's increased oxygen consumption, increased muscle mass, weight loss, whatever it may be. If we can raise that intensity, we can see better results. So we like intensity because it, like he was referring to, is it's measurable. And it's measurable using this formula. Again, Greg Glassman, founder of CrossFit, is kind of a super big nerd when it comes right down to it, creating formulas for exercise. Most of the time when you work out, it's hard to measure your progress, measure your success, and that's why we have those benchmark workouts, and then we can measure and move different components. Yep. So I'm going to go over the surface, and then Brock's going to dive deep into it. So intensity loosely equals a power output, and power can be measured. And if you guys, any of you took physics or anything, I kind of like it. Some people hate it, but you can measure it with force times distance over time. And that's going to give you a power or a wattage output. And so there are some machines that will give that, or a calorie output, etc. It's a way of measuring power. But we can do that even with moving ourselves. I'll go ahead and let you hit on that.
We'll get into this a little bit too, but we'll get into more later. But intensity relative to each exercise, right? So force, right? So what are you moving, external loads, things like that? How much force is being produced? Could be your own body weight, right? And then obviously how far of a distance are we traveling? So something, for example, could be like a bicep curl. compared to a power clean, right? The power clean is going to be more intense because you're going to be moving a larger load a longer distance, and it's going to be quicker, right? I can probably only curl 60 pounds or so bicep curling, right? But I can power clean and clean a lot more than that. So it depends on obviously the purpose of the workout, right? Are we moving just our body weight? Are we moving in a high volume, right? So a big distance. And then we want to have that time's going to be a big factor on that, right? So it all comes down to the purpose of the workout. Now, on the other hand, so like something like Fran, right? It's super fast and it's super light, and you can generate a lot of power in that regards in volume. But then on the other side, taking like a deadlift for an example, it might not be a big a distance like a thruster, right? And a heavy deadlift is a couple seconds, right? Sure. It's not a too fast of a time, like a deadlift compared to a clean, right? A clean's a lot more explosive, it's a lot faster. So in that regard, it could be intense, but that force that you're producing and the weight you're moving is a big load. So it is, in that regards, the intensity levels there.
So what he's kind of getting to is we can move around these variables.
Yeah.
And create a different intensity or the same intensity. So using, by moving a deadlift super slow, meaning the time is slow, with a heavy force, might create a same power output as if we moved a lighter weight super fast.
Yes.
And what's also cool about this way is, again, measurable. And we talked about the importance of recording your time so you can see progress and see how you're improving. So one way, like if we took Fran as a example, if you're doing an RX Fran, what's staying pretty constant is force, whether it's your body weight doing the pull-ups or it's the 95 pounds for the men on the thruster. That's staying pretty constant. Your body weight might fluctuate a little bit. Then we have the distance covered, your arm length to do the pull-up, or the distance that you're moving that 95 pounds from the bottom of the squat to the overhead position is going to stay pretty constant. But so the thing that's going to change is that time. So as that time goes faster, you're creating more intensity, which is creating more stimulus, more adaptation, more results. We're getting fitter, right? We're actually getting more of it, with also always taking into consideration form and safety, etc.
Yep.
But if we're keep those things constant, keep form and technique consistent, and can do things faster, then we know we're going to get a better stimulus and we're going to get fitter. The other example would be a mile run. If you and I ran a mile and you took 20 minutes and I took 10 minutes, who would get fitter over a period of time?
I think either of us.
Right. Either of us, right? But we would like to be a little bit faster than that. But yes, so again, the intensity. So, when you show up to the gym, you should expect to put out some intensity so that you get a results in effort. Exactly.
Yep. And that's relative. So what's cool about this, right? Force distance by time through a weekly basis as well, right? So we could take a Monday workout where you're feeling fresh and supercharged, and you can hit that hard, right? Yep. But you come into, let's say Wednesday, for example, yesterday, I hit a wall, right? My power output was junk. Right. But the effort that I did have in the time, I tried to give that 100%, right? So whatever efforts day to day, right? I could be feeling really awesome. I could not be feeling awesome, but I still got to come in and give that 100% and give as much intensity to the workout as possible. And then in another regard, that could be a good way to scale, right? So maybe today's instance, obviously each workout has a time domain that we're trying to shoot for, right? Ava is a long workout regardless who you are. We said those top times are like 30-ish minutes, right? More around 45, 50, right? That should be streamlined across the board, whether you're a beginner or top level, right? You're seasoned. That should be a long base workout. So if you're not scaling and you're wanting to do RX and it's taking you double time, right? You're not getting that proper stimulus and growth of adaptation due to not getting the right time domain. And that's person to person, right? I'm more than likely going to have to scale today due to certain limitations, right? We go with that as well.
And then the flow of the week, right?
Yeah, the flow of the week, exactly. I'm beat up.
I think that's what everyone needs to understand too, is intensity does not mean you come in here and after every single workout you're laying on the ground. There's some workouts that we would like to see that because and if you're fresh, you're feeling good, etc. We want that kind of effort. But a lot of times, maybe the intensity for you is the fact that you actually got here today and that you finished the workout. And it's going to take time for you to understand that and understand your body and understand that feeling. Because if you force yourself through when maybe you are beat up and just give it everything you got, 120%, it maybe wasn't the right idea. So I think intensity, again, is variable for every individual. But again, we want the most out of you that you feel like you can put in. But your intensity could fluctuate day to day as well, and I think that's important to know. Because if we get too intense all the time, we're actually going to get a negative feedback loop as far as cortisol, too much stress on the body, etc. So we want to be smart with you too. And so that's being honest with yourself, being honest with your coach, so that we can work with you and see how that's going to feel. If you come to the coach and say, hey man, I'm not feeling a 70-pound kettlebell today, well, maybe the 53 is going to be okay today, right? And because again, hitting that stimulus for the workout. So I think that's important to know. But again, I like
one thing I want to touch on too. So looking at the programming, right? Yesterday we had a quick workout. It should have been around 10 minutes, right? Some people maybe even 8. That's a fast time with a lot of volume. That is high intensity, right? If we were to do a similar time domain and a workout that has to produce the same force, the next day and then the next day and then the next day, there's going to be a drop off in intensity. So what's cool about it is looking at the programming, like today, Ava, a long slog, right? It is not meant to go fast, hard, as aggressively as possible, right? It's meant to pace and get through and like that. So that's what's kind of cool.
With the variation,
this combination is amazing, right? Constant variation, high intensity, these mix and match, right? So the variance in the programming will relate to the intensity. That's
perfect. I think we even talked about this yesterday, how Tuesday this week was a 30-ish minute workout, but it was set up in intervals where we were going 100 or probably 90% and then nothing. Resting for 90 seconds repeatedly, where today is just that long slog. So you're not going to run out and PR your first 800. Don't do that. So this will be a little delayed but it'll make sense. But anyway, so the last thing I want to touch on is the fact that whatever you bring to the gym every day is super important. The coach is here to help you with that, to make sure that we're going to hit the intensity so that you can, through this train, get to the results. That's our goal. We want you to get the results. Part of it is your participation and bringing that effort. It's our job to try to pull that effort out of you and encourage you and make sure that we're getting the variation and the functional movements and the programming that's going to be needed for you as well. So that's how I want to end it. You got any final thoughts?
No. More, again, this is the biggest factor, right? So I know a lot of people are like, I only hit the RX button a few times. You know, that's not the purpose, right? The purpose is a better stimulation, increased adaptation, right? So relative high intensity. So make sure that you are looking at the RX as a means of intensity, right? So if you can hit it as it's prescribed, do it. But if not, I mean,
you're going to get the intensity.
You need to get this, right? Like I said, you don't want to do Fran is a 3 to 5 minute workout, maybe even 2 minutes, right? If you're doing Fran in 15 minutes, it's not Fran anymore. It's something else. So just think of it like that when next time you're trying to scale something. You bet.
With that being said, we'll see you. Oh, actually, a couple things. Be on the lookout if you want to get messages and know exactly when these post. I actually just set up on the CrossFit Fort Dodge website a place where you can sign in your email for the website. I know we got a lot of your emails in the back end, but also just kind of foreshadowing, we're going to start talking about probably some nutrition stuff. We're looking at a nutrition challenge beginning October 1st. So again, if you want to be involved and start to get information on there, maybe just go to the website, shoot your email in there. They'll kind of get a gauge of who's all interested. But you're all going to get the information. But go ahead and make sure that we're moving in the right direction. This is what you guys want. Once again, any questions about this podcast or anything in the future, let us know. We'll be in touch, guys. See ya.